Well, good evening. It's 20 to 7, the 18th of May 2020. And of course, today is the 40 years since Joy Division ended after Ian Curtis committed suicide in his kitchen in Macclesfield. And there's a lot of stuff that we can read, interviews we can see about Joy Division, how it's affected people. But I thought, hold on, I thought I would give my wee story for those who may find it interesting, and my obsession with Joy Division for over 40 years. I was brought up in Ellesmere Port, which is in the northwest of England. Joy Division never played the Ellesmere Port Town Hall, I wonder why, but the Beatles, fun enough, did play there. And I was 17, and I had a friend who had, who we both liked the same sort of music. He was 4 years older than me. He had a sister who was going out with some odd, strange dude from Runcorn, which is across the River Mersey to where we lived. And I'd seen this guy around when we played football on a Sunday, and one Sunday he turned up wearing a Mac. He was wearing a Mac playing football, and somebody booted him, and then he climbed up a tree, and I thought, this guy is absolutely weird. So my mate's sister was going out with him, and I went to my mate's house one day, and then eventually she says, "Terry, come into my bedroom." Now hold on before you're thinking anything you're going towards. She says, "Come into my bedroom and listen to my boyfriend's band. I've got a single here by them," and the band was Joy Division. The single was Transmission. It was a 7-inch one with this sort of space cover on it of the constellation or whatever it was. And she put on Transmission, and I'd never heard anything like it before. I really hadn't. And I was really impressed, because at that time I was really looking for something, another band to get into, or music to get into. And this was, I think this is around about March 1980. And then, a few weeks went past, and then the next thing is that she said to me, "Oh, by the way, I'm not going out with that boy from Runcorn anymore, and he's really depressed." And I says, "Why is he depressed?" He said, "Well, that band, Joy Division." Says, "Yes, well, the singer's committed suicide and he's really down." So he says, "Why don't you write to him?" So I started writing to this guy, Timothy, knowing that, not knowing whether we had any interest or anything at all, apart from we both belonged to the same religious group. And he started writing back to me, and needless to say, he was a very strange dude. He was completely different to me. He was really artistic in a lot of ways. He wrote a lot of poetry. He was on a different level than I was completely. And eventually he invited me up to his house. And then he had his room was black, and the floorboards were back on his floor. There was just floorboards, no carpet. And he lived with his mum and dad. And he just spent the whole night. He sat down and he played bands I've never heard of in my life. Band after band after band. Never heard of these bands, because a lot of them were, whether you call it indie or alternative, or basically you never heard them on Radio 1 at the time. Bands after band. Never heard of these bands. The Slits, Cure, Bauhaus, Killing Joke. The list went on and on. Just pulled these out, put them on. And his band, of course, was his main band was Joy Division, and he loved all the factory records as well. So, as you do, as he was a bit older than me, when I went back home, he eventually sent me a cassette of everything Joy Division had done up to that point. This is before Closer was out. And I at the time, was the thing that we both had in common is that we liked black and white photographs. So I started developing a lot of interest in black and white photographs. And when I was in my dark room in the little bedroom in my mum's house, I used to play this Joy Division tape he sent me on a single cassette player with one crappy speaker. And of course, that's how I ended up, connecting Joy Division to Darkness, because I used to listen to them in the dark room. And on this cassette was everything they'd done up to Closer. So there was Unknown Pleasures on it. The 2 tracks from Here Come 2, the 2 tracks from the Factory Sample. That might be it. Yeah. Oh no, the Atmosphere and Dead Souls as well was on it. And yeah, I absolutely loved this band. I just thought this is fantastic. I just couldn't wait for Closer to come out, and then Still to come out after that. And yeah, they then became my band. Joy Division became my band, and subsequently, um, he said we should form a band. He was a guitarist, and so as it were, he says I'll be the guitarist because I am a guitarist, and you can be the bass player. Even though I didn't have a clue whether I could actually play a musical instrument at all. So we both went to Frank Hesse's in about November 1980, and he helped me buy a bass, and I bizarrely still have my bass. It's over there somewhere. I still have my bass and a bass amp. And we then formed a band, and it was called Crime and Punishment. After that book by, I think it was Dostoevsky did it. He read him, and he read Kafka and lots of other people. Never heard it before. I read the Beano, you know what I mean. He just read all this other stuff, and we played music for 6 months, and we both went to see New Order. In February 1981 at Plato's Ballroom, and yeah, they came on stage. We didn't know who the 4th member was. It was a girl. Oh my god, did all songs I'd never heard of before. A few stood out to me, especially In a Lonely Place, because it was ultimately very sad. And shortly after that, I think John Peel played Ceremony and In a Lonely Place back to back when the first New Order single came out, and I recorded that night. And by that time, after being introduced to Tim, I never really listened to Radio 1. I just used to listen to, because it was on medium wave anyway, I used to listen to John Peel. I think he was on every night, and at least he was is in stereo. And a lot of what John Peel played was absolutely shite, but there was just some great bands. All of a sudden you thought, fuck me, this is brilliant. And then all of a sudden I started listening to other bands as well as Joy Division, and then then all of a sudden I got to know a lot of these other bands who subsequently many became very big, and some of them never made it at all. And me and him carried on as our band, Crime and Punishment. We never did anything, released anything. I've got recordings of the 2 of us playing live. And needless to say, as these things do, we fell out over a girl, well, my girl, and that was it. That was the end of Crime and Punishment. We never made it. And subsequently, my attachment to Joy Division grew and grew. I wanted to buy every bootleg there was, and I was buying every bootleg, live here, live in Preston, live here. I had a whole plethora of tape collection. I bought the stuff off through what eBay didn't exist back then, so you bought stuff through adverts in the NME. And I used to start going to record stores in Liverpool and buying, loads of bootleg stuff there as well. Bootleg albums. I bought tons and tons of stuff. All Joy Division, absolutely everything. I was fascinated by it. And then, of course, when New Order came out, I started buying like New Order bootlegs as well. And this carried on. It never stopped. It never stopped for me. This carried on, through when I got married and different times when I all of a sudden was financially, destitute. I then have to sell a lot of my Joy Division New Order collection, and then when I was earning again, then I started buying it back, and then that's eBay became very handy then. So needless to say, my obsession continues through New Order. New Order then became my band. I went off them a bit after Republic, and Republic was a pretty bad album in my mind, but Joy Division were not tarnished by crap albums or crap songs or people falling out in the band, and so Joy Division are just for me, are still the band for me. And during all that collections through eBay and whatever, I bought a whole load of stuff: badges, autographs, set lists, posters, rare records, books, first editions, you name it, I bought it. And then one day, came up in on eBay was Ian Curtis's kitchen table. Ian Curtis's kitchen table, and I just thought, oh, I've got everything else by Joy Division. Why not have the table as well? So I there was somebody selling it. I didn't know if it was the truth or not, but I bought this table from the daughter. In fact, here it's in Joy Division Central. I printed it off a long time ago. If you don't know the story, I'll read it. You can find it in Joy Division Central. Ian Curtis's kitchen table. At the end of 2005, we had an email from Paul and Vicky in Macclesfield. They were redecorating their house, which meant there would be no place for the kitchen table. Ian and Deborah Curtis's old kitchen table. Vicky's mum used to run a bed and breakfast across the road from 77 Barton Street and bought the house with some contents from Deborah Curtis. Years later, Vicky had inherited the table when setting up her own home. So, because they'd contacted Marco and Joy Division Central, it says we put them in touch with Deborah Curtis, and the original plan was for Natalie to have the table. However, that didn't come to fruition, and the table sold on eBay for £100. Yes, it was me who bought it. So that was 2005 I bought that table. And I then actually contacted the guy in Marco after I picked up the table, and this is an email from January 2006. Just to say, look, have I bought a genuine piece of equipment? And then he sent me part of an email that corresponds that him and Deborah Curtis had saying, how funny to see a pic of our table, really made me smile. Actually, Natalie hasn't been looking for possible props for the film, but she is interested in having a table for herself. Please could you put me in touch with the people who have it now so we can get some measurements, because they were filming Control at the time, and apparently Natalie was involved in in getting some of the furniture that went into making 77 Barton Street look like it did when Ian actually was alive. So that was that. I bought the table, I brought it up, I sat it. In fact, this is it here. This is Ian Curtis's kitchen table right now, which just has on it, yes, this is a cassette deck player. It's a karaoke machine, don't use that anymore. A rather lovely amp and a CD player. And over here are all my cassettes relating to factory releases. I haven't got all of them, most of them are Joy Division, A New Order, Durruti Column and a few others. And yeah, so that's, this is Ian Curtis's kitchen table. So of course what happened was I dawned on me, many years later, that I'd let my own musical ambitions slide because I'd spent so much money buying memorabilia relating to Factory, Hacienda, Joy Division and New Order, and even factory artists. It just got absolutely mad, and I just thought this is I want to get instruments, I want to get a Porter studio and actually record all these songs which I knew I had inside me. And I was back with the members of a band that I'd formed in 2004 called Always the Way. I think this was around about 2009 time. I might be wrong. So I just thought I could do with selling some stuff here. And then what happened is that where is it here? Right. Okay. So what happened was. I just thought could sell some stuff in. I never sold it. I lost the will to sell the stuff, and I bought the table in 2005. And my wife hated the table from day one. Oh, not that table! I can't stand that table. But I had it used. I've got a big house, and it was in this is my musical room. So it was in my musical room. She couldn't stand it, and round about, according to this, I thought it was early in this. But around about 2013, obviously, so we're going how many years have I had that now? I bought it in 2005, so this is 2013. So this is 8 years later, 8 years I've had it now. I started to sell stuff on eBay because I thought I need to get a Porter studio to record my songs, a multi-tracker. And what happened was, I was selling stuff to a guy in Canada, factory sampler. Factory Samples signed all the stickers, the first ever Joy Division record. I started selling a lot of stuff. And then he just said to me, great, what other stuff have you got of Joy Division I might be interested in? And I says, well, I've got Ian Curtis's kitchen table. I actually said it as a throwaway because I just thought, the guy's in Canada, who's going to buy this table? In fact, who would want this table? Because initially I'd offered the original sellers in 2005 150 quid. And he says, oh, no. We want to wait till it goes. So I bought it for 100 quid, and nobody was really interested in it. 100 quid is nothing. So I'd had it all these years, and the guy said to us, and I said to him, I tell you what, I'll put it up on eBay, not expecting what was happening. I'll put it up on eBay, and we'll just see what it goes for. Of course, it went on to eBay, and the next thing is, different musical papers got hold of the fact that his table was back onto eBay, and then it just went ridiculous. It went all over the world. And the next thing is I got somebody contacting me through eBay saying, hello, this is so and so from the NME or whatever it is. Deborah's Debbie Curtis has just been quoted in the press, and also the rest of the band has. We'd like to get your view on this as well. And of course it went something like this. Joy Division original members Bernard Sumner and Stephen Morris would like to lend their voice of support to Deborah and Natalie Curtis, who have been caused great distress over media reporting of the sale of the table. Originally owned by the family and currently being auctioned on eBay. Deborah and Natalie would like to point out that the sale of the table has nothing to do with them. The table was sold along with the house in 1980, and Natalie has never signed any authentication documents. This is true. Furthermore, they consider the sale of a personal family item and the subsequent media reporting to be distasteful and upsetting. Well, they were offered the table, as I've already shown, back in 2005, and neither Deborah or Natalie wanted it. And I contacted Natalie around about 2007 when she had a MySpace page, and actually asked them, when's Control coming out? Because by this time I knew she'd been personally involved. And she'd said, she actually replied to me, and I'd already told her that I'd got the table, and she says, cool that the table is being used. Around the same time it went on sale, I got offered a dining table that used to be my great-grandmother's, so it made more sense to take that. So yeah, she never did sign it, but she confirmed again, as Deborah had, that she was supposed to get the table. And it really annoys me that people have contacted me from time to time saying, have you still got that table? And what proof have you got it was actually owned by Ian Curtis? Well, I've got Natalie's message to me, I've got an email here, Marcos. Nobody disputes it was Ian's table. And what I find really awful was because the press, they sort of blame me for putting it back on eBay. On eBay, I bought it from eBay. They had a chance to buy it, and they decided not to. And I just put it on for a laugh, really. And yet it's the press were poor, because they started calling it the suicide table and the haunted table. And then I even had somebody contacting me from the NME saying, oh, by the way, we've had it confirmed that this table here never played any part in Ian Curtis's suicide. Oh my God. So I then gave them a quote, a long thing, and then I found out this thing that people have said about the press. It doesn't matter what you tell them, the press will misquote you and just make it up. And that's what happens. I actually gave a long interview to somebody, and then when I looked at it, I'm thinking they've just taken bits out and not actually quoting me out of context, as it were. And it made me look a bit of a twat. So anyway, needless to say, the table went for £8,400 to the same Canadian buyer who'd bought all the stuff off me. So I thought he'd come through and buy it. Needless to say, he then said, because of the bad press exposure, I don't think I want the table anymore. I'll give you 1,000 quid, and can you keep the £1,000 and you give the table back to Natalie and Deborah. So then I was supposed to drive to Macclesfield, because I live in Scotland, drive it back to them to give them a table they didn't really want anyway in the first place. So I just told him to stick the £1,000 up his arse, and I'd keep the table. But subsequently, of course, the table received such bad press due to the bad press that I can't sell it. I contacted auction sites afterwards to say I've got auction sites who sell lots of stuff like John Lennon's Tooth and that sort of stuff. And they went, oh yeah, we'd be interested in that. Next thing is, oh, we've decided we won't be interested in that because of the bad history of the table. And then I tried to sell it on eBay again a few years later, and I just got tons and tons of fake bids, a lot of personal abuse, a lot of messages, which weren't very nice, and So anyway, needless to say is, Ian Curtis's kitchen table is still in my possession. So now I've had it longer than Ian Curtis had it. I've now had it for 15 years. And it has, I think it's been in this room for 15 years. This is my music room. And subsequently what you can see here is my Porter studio. So eventually, not due to the sale of the table obviously, but by selling other stuff later on, I was able to get enough money to buy a Porter studio. And if you ever want to hear the tracks that I've made on it, and I've actually uploaded a few not so long ago, you will find it on iTunes and Apple Music. That is Apple Music. It's Amazon. So if you just Google and say Google play Alexa play songs by the artist Always the Way, you'll get a whole rostrum of different songs. Many of them were recorded on this. So I'm still, I'm finally now, at last, releasing to the world the music that I wanted to release way back in the 80s, but just didn't have the equipment to do it. Now I do have the equipment to do it, I still have the ideas, but I'm well past it now. I'm only 2 years, I'm 58 this year. Basically, that boat has sailed. That boat has sailed, has gone out to sea, and probably hit a Titanic and sunk. An iceberg and sunk, like the Titanic. That's gone. So I've got no illusions that I'll ever make it. But it from time to time, it is nice when somebody leaves a comment on the on the YouTube page and says a lovely track or whatever it is, or this track made me cry or whatever it is. It's And if you ever listen to the songs of the band Always the Way and listen to the bass, you'll know straight away this guy here has completely been influenced by more the bass lines by Peter Hook in New Order than the bass lines in Joy Division, because I always thought they were a little bit heavy. But if you listen to Peter Hook's playing style, where he puts it through a reverb or a digital delay, that's what I do. I use a digital delay and a chorus pedal, and you can see where my influence has come from the bass playing, but not from the music, because the music's absolutely totally different. So here we are, we're 40 years on from the ending of Joy Division, and 40 years of me being obsessed with that band. It's a little bit more under control now, thank God. I began in a moment of poverty. I had to sell a lot of my stuff. I've still got a few bits and pieces by Joy Division, still got the table, and all my rare records have gone. I've still got posters, Ian's autograph, a set list from a really early gig they did in Bradford, and that's it. All the rare records are gone now. I've hardly got any. They've all gone. I've got all my scrapbooks and press clippings and books, but the things that were any worth have been sold, and that's just the way it is. So I've owned them, I've loved them, and now somebody else can own them, love them again. The table here is still here if anybody wants it. Serious offers. No, I don't think. I don't know. It's an odd one. When I did buy the table, I felt quite uncomfortable having it. Just to think that it was in the kitchen when Ian killed himself, and I felt like it's a bit morbid. But needless to say, I don't. Literally, it's here, and I don't even think about, this is Ian Curtis's kitchen table, this was there that night. But because it is 40 years since we lost him, I just thought I'd I'd give my story, whether anybody can even be bothered listening this far, and tell it. I should have done it at the time. I think at the time when I was selling the table, I should have put up a YouTube video. And then people then couldn't misquote me because it was there, a video of me explaining why I bought the table, and that I was an obsessive Joy Division and New Order fan, not just some guy who was in it to make money. I've probably, in the end of it, to be honest with you, I've spent more than I've made out of the records I've had to sell. I probably took a hit on it, but at the end of the day, is when you get hold of your first Sordai Sentimental, Atmosphere, Joy Division, Dead Souls single, and it's numbered, and all the inserts are there, and you get it for the first time and you unwrap it. It is a fantastic feeling. And I've bought and sold those records when I've had money and lost money, and needless to say, I'm back to the point that I've got no money and I don't have them anymore. Still got the table. So anyway, that's it. I thought how I'm going to commemorate the passing of Ian and Joy Division, and first thing this morning I played Atmosphere. I've been watching on and off Peter Hook's gig from a few years ago, which he did in the church in Macclesfield, which is is good in many bits, and other bits I don't know. It's just that you just wish you could hear Ian singing. You just wish it was Bernard playing the guitar and Stephen playing the drums. I just wish they could settle their differences, but hey ho. And so that's it. Yeah, it's a funny feeling, but it's the 40 years on. Hopefully that most of us are still going to be here in another 10 years to celebrate the 50th. But anyway, there was supposed to be a gig at the Balance tonight with Pete Hook doing it, and when will we ever go to a concert again? I don't know. But in the meantime, I'm going to say cheers to Ian, Peter, Steve and Bernard for all the music that they made with Joy Division, leaving a legacy behind that cannot be tarnished, and something which is bringing joy and influences to go on for generation. This band will go on 100 years time. People will still be talking about Joy Division, and that's just my very small history of my collection, how I got into Joy Division, and a little bit of history on the table. Anyway, don't panic and keep listening to Joy Division. See you later. This is Tel. Bye bye.